Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode on Finance Pe Charcha, and I'm your host Kirtan Shah. And I am just hoping that you've been loving all the videos that we've been putting up on this playlist. If not, please go to the Finance Pe Charcha playlist. We've got some very amazing content uploaded. Lately, if I have to tell you over the last 1 year, the hottest topic, especially on Twitter and other social media handle, has always been whether should I buy a new house or should I rent it. And I've heard diverse views. Of course, I have my own opinion on this, but I can tell you for a fact that there is no thumb rule that can really apply to everybody, right? But the biggest problem is that a lot of us either are thinking practically, and a lot of us are either thinking emotionally. There is no framework that a lot of us are actually using to be more contextual to this discussion, whether should I go ahead and buy a house or rent. And that is what we will try and solve today with our guest. Our guest today is Arun, who is the head of research at FundsIndia. I have to tell you this, if at all you are not following his work or content that he shares on LinkedIn and Twitter, you are missing out on a hell lot of data, very insightful conversation that he brings on board, and a lot of very interesting topics that he simplifies with his data. And I'm a big fan of his writing, and you would generally see me also using his content on various platforms that I use with due credit to his work, because his work is outstanding. Arun today is going to help us with a framework that he believes is the right kind of framework for you to look at while you are trying to play between whether should you rent or buy a house. Please allow me to welcome Arun. Hi, Arun.
Hey, hi, Kirtan. Thank you so much. This is like extremely kind of you, and you feel like super generous. The fandom is like mutual. Like I hugely respect your work, and I'm an ardent follower of all your long threads. So it's super nice to know that, you also kind of follow my stuff. So yeah, and
I'm a
great
bigger fan,
for
I can
having.
tell you for sure.
So super nice of you to have me on the show.
I'm so glad that at such a short notice you actually agreed to be a part of the show, and I'm super excited because when
Right.
I ran through the content that you wrote, I
Right.
really wanted you to come and present to the kind of audience that this
Right.
Finance Charcha show reaches out to, because I know for a fact, first, your content is extremely insightful and very well researched. And because I've been reading a lot of work that you already do, and this is such an interesting and a hot topic that I didn't want to really miss out and waste any time to invite you to talk on this topic. So thank you so much for taking the time.
The pleasure is all mine. In fact, the blog just got posted today afternoon. So we just sent it to some media, and then I was like, okay, this is a great thing that we immediately I get to talk about it.
Awesome,
Right.
awesome. So
Cool. Cool.
you know the drill, Arun. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going
So
to
I'll
hand it
share
over.
my screen.
Yeah, I'm going to hand it over to you to present.
Sure. Sure.
And I'm going to ask you a lot of questions that I might personally have doubts for. I'm a student, so please teach
No, please do. Please do.
me of what you think on this subject. I'm just giving you the rights to
Sure.
present your screen. Just give me a moment.
Yeah. The same boring question. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, very much.
Okay, cool. So all of us kind of know the basic topic, right? The broad idea was, this is something that kind of almost all of us at some point in time in our life will have to decide on this question. And for at least Indians, this is like 9 out of 10 of us will have to go through this question, whether you need to like rent your house or should you better buy a house. Okay?
Absolutely.
So that's the whole context, and then the broad idea was, can we have a framework which will help us to think through this, right? So that's the whole thing. Now, before I move on to the presentation, just some broad things that first and foremost, I'm not a real estate expert. Just like I have a lot of my friends who are grappling through this decision, a lot of my clients who do that. So the broad idea was, can I read about it, and can we build a good framework around it? Now, obviously, the challenge was, on one end you had extremely emotional views, and on the other end you have this fancy Excel calculation which say hey, it's better to rent and all that. So the idea was, obviously people are somewhere in between, right? So it's not black or white. So can I build a framework which will help integrate both the emotional part and the rational part and help you take a decent decision with respect to this question? So the second point is very simple, that if it is your second home, then I think it makes a lot more sense for you to be rational and do these Excel math. But this is more relevant. The framework is more relevant for your first home, where you essentially want to live there, right? So this is not for the second one. For the second one, I would say be rational, and my preference would obviously be towards equity related investment. So this is purely from a person who's trying to build their first house, or build or rent at their first house, right? Okay.
So I think the first part is clear, that second house is not recommended.
Right. Right.
You should do basic math, which will tell you that there is hardly any sense in doing the second house.
Right.
And in this,
Right.
we will actually focus whether you should buy a house to stay or you should rent a house to stay.
Right. Right.
Perfect.
Yeah. So again, the starting point is fairly simple. Now I realize that if you have a very complex framework where you need to go through some 10, 15 different questions, it really doesn't cut the chase. So the idea was, how do I shrink it to a very simple thing that almost all of us can use, probably take some half an hour and then get the whole thing done. Okay. So net, it's all about three simple questions. The first is, there's a basic filter test, that is, you'll have to pass through 3 filters. The moment you do that, then you wear your emotional lens and then go through the decision. And then after that, you wear the rational lens, go through the decision. And finally, you will have a good sense of whether you need to buy or rent your first house, right? So that's how we're going to do it. So let me take you through the first question, which is, does the decision pass your 3 filter test? Now, in terms of 3 filter tests, it's a fairly simple thing. One, obviously, the first question is that, are you actually going to live there for the next 10 years? Now, obviously, if you're early in your career, most of us are not too clear in terms of where exactly we might land up over the next 5-10 years. Like, you might start, let's say I am in Chennai, and I know a lot of my friends who started here, but probably are in Bombay or Bangalore, mostly Bangalore, if you are in tech. And some of them have gone abroad as well, and I don't think that they'll ever return. So in the first 10 years, it's very critical that the first question you need to ask is that, are you reasonably sure that you're going to be in the same place and be in that same house for the next 10 years? So that's the first filter. Now, if you say yes, then you move on to the next one, which is like, are you having a reasonably stable professional and a personal life? Now, this is very important, because all said and done, buying a large house and it involves EMI and all that. So it is going to add some bit of stress. Now, you ask most of them, they will say that 100% it is stressful, especially in the first 3 to 5 years, because it does involve a lot of sacrifices. So you don't want to add it at a stage where probably your job is not very secure, or having a bad boss, or you're trying to professionally move somewhere else and you're still confused about your career and all that. Or let's say personally you're going through some crisis, or there is some personal problems and all that. Those are times where you really don't want to, buy another house and add more pressure to your existing stress, right? So the second question should be that, is your professional and personal life reasonably stable? Now, this is yes. Then you go to the third question. This is a fairly simple question, that can you afford it? Because I've generally seen that when it comes to this buying a home, right, people tend to kind of keep pushing the limit. So maybe you start with a 1 crore house, then you say, let me push it to 1.2. Then something else comes in. Then eventually you keep pushing the boundaries and you say, hey, there's a better house for 1.8. Why don't I somehow stretch and then do it? So net, you broadly need to see if whatever house that you're looking to buy, is it affordable? Now, the next question is, how do I know whether it is affordable or not? Because we have this tendency to justify like even slightly higher prices as affordable, right? So thereby we put a very simple rule, which is like your 3, 30, 25, 15 rule. In essence, it asks 4 questions, and for these 4 questions, if the answer is yes, then it means that the house is affordable for you, right? So the first question is very simple. Like, say if you are earning say around 20 lakhs a year, right? Roughly, a good math would be like approximately 3 times of your annual income. You can look at a house should be afforded. Now, there's no precise thumb rule saying can't it be 3.5? Can't it be? I mean, you can obviously extend it, but this is like on a very, very conservative basis. If it's less than 3 times, let's say you're both of you are earning, let's say one of you is earning 20 and the other one is again one more 20, then probably it's 40 lakhs, right? So then obviously 3 times would be close to 1.2 crores. Now you can obviously stretch it a little, maybe you can make it 4x and then you can. So all these are broadly frameworks. So which means these rules can be slightly modified based on your requirements if you feel that it's too conservative. But broadly, the idea is to say, keep a cutoff saying that, hey, I won't cross this number of times of my salary. And I think 3 is a very conservative thing. Maybe if you want to stretch it a little more, you can keep it at 4. But I think anything more than 4 is a little bit of a stretch. Okay. Second, sorry.
No, good. I'm just acknowledging that
because,
because when you made this statement, can you afford it? The question is very simple. I knew the question is simple, but the answer is extremely difficult.
Right. So, and again, the second question is, most of us, whether we like it or not, we don't have the entire amount to buy the home, right?
100%.
So if that was the case, then it's like a no-brainer. But yeah, we can only put in some portion, and the remaining most likely has to come through a loan. So usually banks will allow you to even put it at 20% or sometimes it is even lower. But my sense is you should at least have 30% of the entire. So let's say you want to buy a 1 crore property, you should at least have 30 lakhs saved. Right? So which means that this gives you a little more discipline, because otherwise, like as I told you, you always want to overextend it and you want to take it as early as possible. So I think first level, at least save up to 30%, and then the remaining 70% can come from your loan. Sure. And the third level is that now the remaining 70 has to come from the loan, and how much of your monthly salary, let's say both of you are earning, then it's both of you, or if you're individual, then it's your individual salary. So does it cross more than 1/4 of your salary? Usually it's better to keep it to less than 25% of your salary. Sure. So let's say that also ticks the bill. Then the last leg is you try to say that, hey, try to keep the EMIs to less than 15 years. Generally, I've seen that people take for 20 years, but somehow or the other, they kind of try to do it by 7-10 years. But I think at 15 years 20 years might be reasonably long enough. And usually you see that your your interest is almost equivalent to the entire loan that you take. So let's say you take a 1 crore loan for a 20 years at say 8.5-9%, you almost end up paying another 1 crore more as your EMI. So 15 years is a reasonably good time frame, and hopefully you are able to increase your salary and kind of try to knock it off by say 7-10 years. That's the thing. So broadly, if you go through all these 4, which is less than 3x your annual income. Now, if you find it too tight, maybe you increase it to 4, but nothing more than 4.
Can I revise this and you correct me if I have understood this?
100%. Yeah.
Let's say if my salary is hypothetically 30 lakhs, right?
Right.
So we are saying that as a framework, make sure that you buy a house which is 3x. So either 90 lakhs or on a stretch 1 crore.
20 lakhs. Hello.
Second, we are saying,
yeah,
that's the maximum you should actually indulge yourself in.
Correct.
Second, we are saying that let's say if it's a 1 crore house, right?
Right.
You should at least have 30% of that money available with you to pay as upfront.
Right.
30 lakh rupees you should pay as down payment.
Right.
Whereas banks may be okay you paying only 20, or even if your credit score is very good, let's say only 15, but you should have 30 lakhs to make as upfront payment on a 1 crore house and 70 lakhs as loan.
Right.
Also trying to take a loan. Also make sure that the 70 lakh rupees of loan that you are taking, the EMI that comes out should not be more than 25% of your salary. So let's say if my salary is 1 lakh rupee, my EMI should be 25,000 on a higher side, not more than that.
Right.
And the third is, because my income is going to keep increasing every year, right? And hence I can afford either a higher an EMI, or probably pay off something as lump sum from my savings every year.
Right.
Should look at a target that I should knock off my entire loan in 15 years.
Right.
I
Right.
understood the framework correct?
Yeah. 15 years is what the loan tenure that you take. And hopefully you try to knock it off within 7 to 10 years. But
Okay.
the idea is don't take a 20-year loan. Try to calculate your EMI for a 15-year loan and then see is the loan EMI less than 25%. So
awesome.
that's the
Okay.
whole thing.
Got you.
Yeah. So that this would be the starting thing, right? You create these 3 filters and then it's fairly simple to answer, right? Probably in 5 minutes you can figure this out. Once you are through this, then probably you are on to the next decision. But let's say if one of the 3 is not satisfying or 2 of the 3 is not, or all 3 are not satisfied, then I think it's better at this current juncture that you continue to rent. So that's the first level of the filter. If you fail in any of these filters, then continue to rent. It's a clean decision, right?
Perfect.
And obviously the thumb rules you can slightly modify based on your understanding. But as I told you, there's always this tendency to kind of overstretch it. So some numbers like this will help you know whether you're overstretching or not. So that's the broad idea, right? And then the second idea is very simple, that once you pass those first 3 filters, the next is to purely take the emotional angle, like no rational, no Excel calculations and all that. And then say from an emotional point of view, why would you want to buy? And from an emotional point of view, why would you want to rent? Now, from an emotional point of view, the primary idea, at least I used to rent for a very, very long point. My emotional reason was fairly simple, that I just don't want any stress in my life. Like I just can't. The first time I remember, after I got married, we had to buy something from a retail outlet. I think it was a sofa or something like that. And then I had the money, but then obviously there was Bajaj Finance there, which was giving 0% EMI. I took the loan. And then obviously I somehow didn't like this whole feeling of somebody taking off X amount from my salary every month. And it just went on for 12 months. I could have easily paid it at one shot because I really did have the money. Then somehow I realized that I personally don't enjoy this feeling of somebody taking out the money every month, and especially if it is going to be a large amount, then it's a different stress. But a lot of people are okay with it. So it's nothing in terms of it's very personal. So first level is you need to ask, saying, how comfortable are you paying a reasonably large amount of loan on your head, and on top of it the EMI. The second question is very simple, that obviously if you have a large EMI, right, then obviously your spending is automatically under control. Everything you'll have to do the math, saying that will there be enough at the end of the month. So my preference from an emotional point of view would be that at least at the early stage of your career, you want the flexibility to spend without worrying that there's a large EMI going and all that. And the third is the very obvious thing, that let's say you want to take higher risk. Let's say you want to start your business, or not even starting a business. There, in fact, I have a friend of mine who suddenly took a 6-month sabbatical. She just wanted to explore, and she just wanted to take some time out for herself. Now, obviously, if she had a large EMI, that would not have been possible. So you have different people doing not normal stuff in terms of taking a sabbatical, in terms of traveling, in terms of starting their business, or probably trying out a new career. And worst case, it doesn't work out, they can always come back. So all these risks and flexibility also goes for a toss once you have a large. So these are emotionally, I think these are your now, though you have a loan, you can obviously do all the 3. Like you can still be without stress, you can still spend the remaining, you can still take risk. But the point is, for most of us, it's an emotional comfort that you don't have a loan and you are able to go through these 3. Now, the opposite side is, what is the 3 reasons why emotionally you want to buy? First and foremost, all said and done, whether we like to accept it or not, a home is a status symbol. So anybody who's gone through arranged marriages know that almost inevitably the question comes saying that, hey, do you have a home? Right? Because net it's look like once you have a home, then the fellow is sorted.
So they don't know how much you have in your demat.
Yeah, it is. And like, let's say I buy, and mostly it's easy, right? It's super easy signaling. Let's say I have X amount in my portfolio. Nobody has a clue what I have. Let's say instead I had a large house, right? So all of us who see that house, they roughly know, hey, in this area it costs so much. So Arun has so much of wealth into this. So obviously, if he's buying a house for so much, then he's doing good, right? So And then it's a good thing to signal to others that, hey, I've arrived in life. And it's a symbol that almost is accepted by the society, right? So I am not debating the fact that, hey, do you need to signal your status and all that? All said and done, all of us do it, right? From the cars that we want to the gadgets and all that. So it's a natural human behavior. So there is no negative connotation to it. If you really think it is a status symbol and you want to signal, I think it's completely fine, right? So it is a genuine benefit that the house gives you, right? So that's one. The second thing is, for a lot of them, I've seen that it gives them that peace of mind, because they might have had a very bad experience in terms of moving out of different houses because of the house owner, or maybe they had a bad relationship with their house owner. And a lot of them from their early childhood have that thing that they need something on their own where they're able to design it and all that. So for a lot of us, it gives us peace of mind, and most importantly, that sense of pride and happiness.
Yeah.
So that's a genuine benefit that you get. And the third thing is, see, unlike equity, is the biggest advantage of a home is that most people inherently have at least a decade or two, or not, I mean, if not more, but most often than not, anybody whom you see, they'll easily hit a 10-year, 20-year time frame in terms of owning that asset, right? So again, such a long time frame will obviously mean that you also end up getting the benefit of compounding. But again, it's a rational thing. But net, the long holding periods is an emotional advantage that you have, and then it automatically inculcates spending discipline, because if so much is going on EMI, automatically I am forced to start calculating all my unnecessary expenses, automatically cut down. So I think that's why our parents obviously keep pushing us moment they see that, hey, these fellows are spending irresponsibly, let me put a big home on them, then automatically they'll get disciplined in life. So I think it's a behavioral tool which worked phenomenally well. So I think there's no debating the fact that it will automatically inculcate spending.
I just hope real estate was listed on the exchange where people could see their price go up and down every day.
then it would be a very different case. So anyway, because that doesn't happen, the automatically there's this long holding period, and obviously the flip is that you automatically end up the asset is already built, and then you kind of while it is an EMI, still it is almost the habit of saving, because you've started to control your spending. So these are like three reasons on both. Now you will have to look at all these 3 versus 3 and say, where are you inclined towards? Now, if you're more like me, where you think that, hey, this stress is too much to handle and I don't want anybody taking the money out, then probably I lean more towards the reason to rent. But if you think the status or the happiness or behavioral advantage is more like, I don't think people think about this as a construct. But I think primarily the first two, behavioral advantage is a side effect of getting that. But depending on where you are kind of leaning towards, you can take a call, right? Now, if you want to rent, then simple, you stop with this and then you go and rent. But let's say you say, hey, I am convinced that I need to buy because of these 2 reasons. And then you move on to the next level. This is fine, right, Kirtan? The pace is fine, right?
Absolutely.
Fine. Yeah. So now we come to the...
I am just trying to go back to what my thought process was when I entered. And I'm just at the back end reimagining all of those things.
Okay. Right. So then again, now comes the rational part of it, that like the first 3 filters are sorted. You are okay to buy, and then emotionally also you are inclined to buy. Now the last question is that, is the price right? Now let's say all these are ticked, but what if you end up in a very expensive, or you end up in the wrong part of the cycle, right? Because the same house probably in Chennai real estate market, had you bought in 2003, you would have made a killer till 2011-12. But the same house probably you entered at 11-12, you didn't make any returns in the next 10 years. So again, the same property, same area.
Yeah, 2010 to 2020 was a dull for real estate across the country. I think people have actually lost money if you adjust it to inflation in real estate in
right.
that decade. So that cycle didn't play out well at all.
Right. So it was almost like across the country, right? So which is why it is very, very critical that at this level you also need to understand that even if you decide to buy, is my price right? Because this is very, very important, because this is all said and done. For most of us, this will be one of the largest expenses that we'll do for our entire life. and the baggage of this decision will come with us for at least 7 to, though you take a larger loan, usually I see people somehow or the other put everything that they get for the next 7-10 years into this. So which means it's not a small decision. It's almost like a decision which will suck all your money away for the next 7-10 years. So this
In fact,
question is very, very important.
even after 2 decades, right? If you
Right.
go back and reflect, I think on the personal net worth statement, real
Right.
estate is still 50% of your overall net worth
Right.
in most of cases.
Right. And it's still, I think last year it was, I mean, a few years back it was 55, but it's still 50% is a very, very
Yeah.
large number in India. Right. So again, the questions to ask is very simple. One, is it cheap or expensive? Now when it comes to equity, we have these valuation metrics like PE, PB, market cap to market cap, and then you have several market cap to GDP, you have earnings yield, and you have several other metrics. But somehow in real estate, we barely have any metrics. So the idea was, is there a metric which we can roughly use for real estate? Then the second leg is very simple. What's the kind of potential future development in that area? The third is to see where we are in the cycle. Now, how do we do it? Now, is it cheap or expensive? See, one of the quick thumb rules that you can use is that to start comparing with the rental yield. Because if you really look at it, the rental market is a little more efficient in pricing it, because you are not going there with an emotional baggage, and you are free to move homes. So mostly the prices that you pay on the rental yield kind of gives a sense of how good the property or how cheap the property is. So usually rental yield is nothing but the monthly rent that you give. You multiply it by 12, so that roughly you know for an entire year what is the rent that I pay for that particular house. Now that amount you divide, I mean that amount as a percentage of the entire properties or entire home's price is what is called the rental yield, right? Now in India, usually the rental yield.
If I have a 1 crore house and 20,000 a month as rent,
Right.
so I'm seeing 2,40,000 a year.
Right.
So 2,40,000 rent for a 1 crore property is 2.4% rent yield. Yeah.
Right. So that's how you calculate the rental yield. And the next step is to basically compare the rental yield vis-a-vis your home loan rate. And roughly you find the gap. And usually the lower, the better. And I mean, if you look at global countries, mostly you will find the gap to be very, very small. But in India, it's usually reasonably large compared to the other countries. But here the rough thumb rule is that anything less than 4, if you get, then it's a reasonably good price to enter, right? And then if it is between 4 to 6, it's not too expensive, it's not too cheap. But if it is more than 6%, then you'll have to start worrying a little and then maybe check for some other properties where you might get a better deal. But anything above 6, which means that probably your home loan rates are at, so let's take this small example, right? 1 crore property, monthly rent of 20,000, so roughly 2.4 lakhs, which is around 2.4% rental yield. Current home loan rates close to 9%. So you will find that if you subtract your home loan rate minus your rental yield, it's roughly 6.6%, which is more than the 6% yield. And hence it becomes on the expensive side. So usually if you get a property of less than 4, then it becomes like a no-brainer kind of a thing. And obviously you'll have to add some context saying, are the home loan rates are also, are they at a normal level, or are they abnormally cheap for a temporary time? So let's say we had it at 6.5%, 7% for a small stretch, right? Now, if you compare, then maybe you might slightly get skewed, but broadly take a call that, hey, over the next 5-10 years, what's the rough rough home loan rate, which I can look on. On average in India, at least it has been close to 8-9%, right? So at least going forward, 8-9% should be a broad metric that you should have, and then compare it with the rental yield. You'll get a sense. Roughly, the idea is simple, that if instead you stayed at that place, you would anyway pay the rental yield. So the EMI that you're paying is, the interest that you're paying is over and above that. And if the margin is higher and higher, that has to get covered by the price appreciation of your property. So you want the margin to be smaller so that your price appreciation has a lot more margin of safety. So it's more like what we do in equity, just that you're trying to build a margin of safety through this. And this is a very simple rule that you can follow. So this can be one level of figuring out whether it is reasonable or not.
Arun, unfortunately, I'm not sure of Chennai, but in Bombay,
Right.
residential, right? And if I take it at 8%, I am always going to be at the borderline of it being expensive. Because even if I say 3% rent yield here in Mumbai and 8% loan rate, I think 8% or 7.5% is reasonable, because over the next 10 years rates will also fall. And hence, hence your rate today may be at 8.5, but average over the next 10 years you might end up paying only 7. So even if I say 7 and 3, no, now it makes sense if I take it as 7. So 7 is the interest rate, 3% is the rent yield, then 4 is what you are saying is cheap, and hence the value may look okay.
Yeah, because broadly the idea is that this remaining gap, right, that has to get covered by your price appreciation of your house.
Correct.
So the lesser is this gap, then let's say if I hit an 8% appreciation, right, and let's say I get it at 4% gap. So now I have a lot of more margin of safety because I am still making 4% more on this. So the idea is that the property price also works for you on at an asset class level in terms of the returns over and above your EMI, I mean your interest rate that you're paying. So which is why if you get it lower, it's great. But the point is, if it is more than 6%, right, the idea is for you to stop and reflect. Because otherwise you are like, you don't have any metric, and then you directly say whatever is the price I am emotionally in, and I am going to go. So this will kind of make you pause, and then probably you should evaluate the other factors as well. Let's say if you really want to buy something at more than 6%, right, then there has to be something else also going in for you. Maybe the other two questions can probably give you a sense of that. The second question is fairly simple. This, I think, mostly all of us do that. Like, what is the potential for that location? One, in terms of future, and in terms of the current locality. Like, where is it situated? Is the roads, infra, and all good? Like, is it like a very decent area in that locality and all that, right? So broadly, I think this is fairly something that most of us do. And if you are overpaying in the previous question, mostly that overpaying should be in account of the fact that there's something extraordinary. Let's say there's an airport coming, or there's a metro which is coming, or something which is extraordinary, which is going to happen over the next 5 years here, and hence you expect that area prices to go up. So this you can relate it to the previous question and kind of take a call. But otherwise, if this is still nothing great, then probably in the first question you should be a little more stringent on the valuation that we asked. And then the third question is very simple, saying that where are you in the real estate cycle? Now, just like how we have cycles and equities, and again in real estate, you will find long stretches of 7-10 years where you have great returns, which will again be followed by long stretches of 7-10 years where you again have very poor returns. So if you look at the period before 2003, I think almost for 6-7 years, you had a lull in real estate. Again, after 2002, 2003, it again picked up almost till 10-11. It went berserk. Then again, for the last 10 years, it's been done. So usually when you're buying, a good way to ask is that where are you in the real estate cycle? Now, obviously, like these are probably numbers which are available outside. But let's say if you are not aware of these kind of charts, and NHB is something that gives these kind of numbers. But let's say even otherwise, a simple thumb rule can be that just check what's been the last 5-year returns of real estate, right? Broadly, anybody in Chennai or any part of the country will roughly know that last 5 to 10 years, there has been hardly any movement. So you don't need to be a major data geek to figure this out. Almost everybody knows this, right? Yeah. And the second is look at the kind of supply, right? And then you will find that the supply starts to reduce. This again, you might want to check some data. There are hundreds of reports which gets done. So just check for supply, whether the existing inventory is reducing, and if there are too many, there will usually be hardly any new projects being announced. So these are generally signs that people are fatigued and there is no more new houses coming up. So you will roughly get a feeler of this. And then you also check for the loan rates. Are they low? Because the lower the loan rates, more people can afford to buy it. And then for the broad improving demand in terms of, for a long time, has it time corrected and salary is gone up. So broadly, you will see these four coming together in the last end of the cycle. While you can't precisely time it, at least when you're buying, you can roughly check saying, where are you broadly in the cycle? You can at least get a rough approximation of that. once you put all these three together, that is the price right? You compare it with the rental yield. What is the future development potential and the current potential or the current quality of the area? And the third is where are you in the cycle? If you put all these three together, you will get a good sense of what kind of returns you can expect over the next whatever. At least at a price level, are you entering at the right level, or are you entering probably close to the top?
So basically, you are saying the remaining or the next 5-7 years looks good for real estate, right?
Yeah, I think so. Because you're almost coming after a 10-year lull.
Correct.
And you're also seeing here, right? The first
Correct.
level of price hike is already started after almost a long period where there was hardly any returns.
Yes.
So if somebody is buying today, it's clearly at the bottom of the cycle, maybe early start of the next cycle, but it's a very clear indication that this is definitely the start of the next cycle.
There is supply also. So yeah.
Right. So effectively your price is right if your home loan rate and rental yields, the difference is less than 6%. Less than 4% is a killer, but anything less than 6% is okay. And this area has a potential for future development and price appreciation. And are you more or less at the early stage of real estate cycle, right? So if these three are there, then it's a go, and then you can go buy your house. But let's say, what if one of these items are not there and the price is not right? The logical solution is you wait longer, or you figure out more options in your area where can you get better places. But otherwise, you can also override it. But the key point when you're override it is that you have to be sure that it is 100% an emotional decision.
Yeah.
But then after that, after 5 years, you shouldn't compare saying that, hey, my prices have not gone up. I didn't expect this from real estate. So you have to go on with the clear fact that I did evaluate rationally what is there. Those price points were not supporting me. But despite that, I definitely need to go for it. And it is going to be a pure emotional decision. So the whole idea is to handle your regret. Because otherwise, what will happen? You'll buy and then you'll be like, it's a very large thing. I shouldn't have done it. And then the returns are not there and so on and so on. So if the returns you get it, it's well and good. But most likely the odds are not by your side. So it's better to come in terms with it initially rather than lament after 5 years. So once you do all this, I think broadly you're sorted. And this is how we kind of put it in a very simple one pager. So whenever you want to buy a house, probably you can go through this simple checklist.
And the viewers should take a screenshot here so that they can get this handy.
It's anyway, it will be there in our blog, and I've also published it in my Twitter. So you can.
I'll put the link to your Twitter and LinkedIn also. This blog on the description.
So this is broadly it, Kirtan. So this is how.
Super. I'll tell you a couple of things, right? First, I think the framework was brilliant. I'll tell you why. Because the second point that you touched based on, which is the emotional angle, is generally the point of discussion, right? Because let's say if I'm somebody who's rational, right, I will do my math and I will say rent any day makes sense. Because if I'm getting a house at 3% rent, why do I pay 9% as EMI, right? Why do I compromise on my lifestyle when this is the time I really want to enjoy? Emotional guy will say exactly what you just mentioned, right? That I don't bother about anything. I need peace of mind. I need my house. So generally the discussion is always the second point of fight, whether you are emotional or rational, right? I think the first and the third that you covered were very interesting. The first you actually gave me a framework saying, can I really afford it? Right. So you told me that it should be 3-4 times, the value of the house should be 3-4 times maximum of my salary. You said my down payment should be 30% of the house. And you said my EMI should largely be only 25% of my income. Right. So you gave me a framework, right, saying that take a loan for 15 years, but do you really think that you will be able to pay it off in 7-10 years with increase in salary? If I'm able to do that, I'm ready to buy the house for all practical purposes, right? And the last part was also very interesting, where you actually said that, look, everything might be okay, right? But even if you are extremely emotional and you can afford, it does not make sense for you to buy real estate at any price, right?
Correct.
So if you're ready, might as well wait for 6 months, 12 months for the right price to come in that.
Right.
It's in a framework of yield minus the loan rate, and below 4 is super cheap, above 6 is expensive, was brilliant. I think if somebody goes through this half an hour, 40 minutes of video that we've recorded and actually follows what you just highlighted for us,
Right.
she will have a lot of value to derive out of the conversation that we've had, Arun. Brilliant. Superb. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kirtan. Because the other thing is it's not a simple decision, right? This is a decision which will probably be the biggest expense of mostly for your life, and it's also the next 7 years or 10 years of most of your earnings or mind space and your money will mostly go towards the single decision.
Yes.
So I think it's definitely worth that people
100%.
really spend some quality time on all these factors, and then you take a good decision where you also know that, hey, I've gone through all this, and then it's a clear-cut decision, and it's not overswayed by either too much of rationality or too much of emotion.
I think you hit the nail on its head, where you said for the next 10 years your entire life is going to be decided of what the EMI is,
Right.
and lifestyle is going to completely dependent on it.
Right.
How can you just emotionally go ahead and decide that, I want to buy a house without spending half an hour to do all of these things that you spoke, about?
Right.
Brilliant. Arun, I've learned a lot from this. Thank you so much for taking the time out and actually sharing this with us, because generally the kind of content that people talk about on various other social media is very generic and putting 3 pieces together. But you've laid down a very strong foundation and a framework to what should I really look at if I'm going to make such a big decision, which is probably in the first 10 years going to be 80-90% of my net worth, right?
Right.
I really love the conversation. Thank you so much, Arun. We keep learning a lot from all the research and content you do. Please continue to do that. And everybody who's watched us, thank you. I hope you are liking the series on Finance Pe Charcha. Do go ahead and follow Arun on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm gonna post his links to the description, plus the blog that he's written on this subject that we are talking about. He writes some amazing content. You cannot not follow him. And if you've not seen the other videos on Finance Pe Charcha, please take this opportunity and go through the playlist. I will come back to you, see you with a new episode. We are soon coming out with some very interesting content on IT sector analysis, banking sector analysis to start with, which is going to come out early next week. We post a video every Friday, like you all are aware of. And if you like the content, do share it with your friends and subscribe and click the bell icon. Thank you so much.